One doesn't go against the FBI. It's very anti-American, it's anti-patriotic, people think you're crazy to go against the FBI. Yet I knew that my rights were being violated. I knew that this was more than an individual case. What had happened to me had happened and was happening to other Hispanics.
Matt Perez is taking aim against racial discrimination in the FBI. He says it caused his demotion from the FBI's highest-ranking Hispanic agent to assistant in charge in El Paso, Texas. Perez and over 300 Hispanic agents sued the FBI in a class-action lawsuit, charging systematic discrimination in promotions, assignments, and disciplinary actions.
People were being put into what we call the taco circuit, meaning the trenches, the work that was not career-enhancing. We'd get a pat on the head, we'd get a monetary reward now and then for a good arrest, a good takedown, a good case. Yet when it came time to being supervisors, those things were relegated for the non-Spanish speakers and basically white Anglo males.
Multiple rounds of gunfire being fired down the street.
All FBI agents face a range of extremes in their jobs.
There are 4 FBI agents down, 2 are 45.
From life-threatening undercover operations to routine surveillance. The question was, if Perez and other Hispanics had the same skills and the same training as Anglo agents and were performing just as well in their jobs, why were they not being promoted or given choice assignments as the Hispanics charged?
There are performance appraisals that are done.
Okay.
Statistician Gary Lafree joined Perez's lawyers as they gathered both anecdotal evidence, individual stories of discrimination, and statistical evidence. Using significance tests, the statistics might show that what was happening was far from coincidence.
So we're talking mostly about...
I concentrated on a snapshot of where the FBI is in 1987. The analysis, though, had to be dictated in part by the fact that we had a very small sample of Hispanics, and a lot of the questions we were interested in had to do with differences between grades and between different ranks. So I was looking for a relatively straightforward approach that would allow us to compare groups, and hopefully that it will allow us to keep a fairly aggregate group so that we could do something meaningful statistically.
Dr. Lafree came to Washington to gather data from the computers at FBI headquarters. Using the same information, but asking very different questions, was the statistician hired by the FBI to assist in their fact-finding, Dr. Rebecca Clem. Her analysis was aimed at answering the question of whether the FBI was changing for the better over time.
The statistics provide a discussion of pattern and practice of an organization, and particularly of their decisions. Generally, the cases I work on are really large, and so it's not like one decision is being questioned. But it's a series of questions over time that or across different subparts of an organization to see whether there is some systematic pattern of something that is illegal going on.
What she was doing is using a baseline from the past to determine whether there's discrimination in the present. Now, this makes sense if there was no discrimination in the past, but saying, for example, that things are better in 1988 than they were in 1968 is a different issue than whether they're where they should be in 1988.
The case entered federal court before Judge Lucius Bunton. Like most judges who hear class action suits, he knew that both sides would be armed with statistical arguments.
All rise, please.
Statistics are very much a part of the judicial game. I like numbers. They mean some things to me. It's a method of comparison. What you've got to be very careful of, and or at least what I look for, are the assumptions that go into the building of this picture that they're trying to paint for you. Because that's what statistics do. They paint a picture for the judge.
The picture Dr. Clem painted in the courtroom, based on her analysis of change over time, was one of progress in the FBI.
My testimony, from what my findings were, is that there was no problem in Hispanics in being promoted. As a matter of fact, they were promoted faster.
Perez's lawyers used Dr. Lafree's analysis to show a very different effect, that Hispanics were not fairly represented in management ranks.
You're drawing from a population in the United States that's roughly 8 or 9% Hispanic. About 4.3% of all special agents are Hispanic. About, when you get up to the supervisory levels, you're getting around 2%, and when you get up to grades 15, 16 within the organization, the higher supervisory positions, you're down to around 1%. So looking at those differences statistically, as a whole, they are statistically significantly different. I pointed out in the courtroom that a lot of the differences were on the magnitude of 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000.
These p-values were strong, but it was up to Judge Bunton to decide their significance within the surrounding circumstances of the case. Like other judges hearing discrimination suits, he had to balance the numbers with other evidence. In the end, the combination of personal testimonies and statistics presented by the plaintiffs were compelling enough that Judge Bunton found for Matt Perez and the 311 class members. With a court victory behind him, Matt Perez gets on with the career he started in 1963, committed to his role within the FBI. The part statistics should play in the courtroom is not so clear-cut, even as important cases which rely on statistical evidence become more common.
There can't be, in a sense, uncertainty in the law. There is a guilty or a not guilty verdict, ultimately. It's a dichotomy. You're either guilty or you're not guilty. And I think that's difficult because in science it's possible, and it's frequently the case, that there is uncertainty, there's gray areas. In fact, that's what statistics are all about, is giving the level of that uncertainty.